Yeah, I know. It should be good. Play on Saturday. Play? Yeah, I remember it hit 2 weeks ago.
It's bloody weird, isn't it? It's so weird. You can't do that.
Alrighty, if everyone would like to grab a spot where you can see and still pick the sound check if people can hear me. All good? Sorry about the slideshow, we'll work on getting that going throughout the day. Trev's turned on the sun, so we can't see that. But we thought we'd start off today tooting Trev's beloved siren. So just over here throughout the day when you get the chance, come over and check out Trev's timekeepers sort of setups. That was the place where you'd find him most Saturdays throughout the football season. Keeping score, blowing his sirens, scaring every person that's under this awning. Never a warning was given. It would just be a long, deadening siren, and everyone in the front row would be jumping up, and I think that was the most fun part of his day on a Saturday. So, other than telling people over there to get out of the way of his scoreboard. So just firstly, I'd like to welcome Lynn, Lee and Jay, family friends of Trevor Windmill. So thank you for everyone that's come today and made the trip to get here to honour what we all know to be an amazing man. The turnout's great. We have got some toilets just behind us here in the umpires room. We've also cleaned out the public toilets for today as well. So if you need to go, they're down that way. That's the business out of the way. So I thought I'd start with a way Trev would always get out of his car over there and he'd say, "How you doing now?" I'd say, "Oh, you don't want to hear the story, but we'll go anyway." And that's sort of how our day started every Saturday or every Tuesday and Thursday. When you first met Trev, the words that come to mind for people would say grumpy, direct, surly, opinionated, old-fashioned, passionate, set in his ways, and a true lover of AFL football. After you got to know him for a little time, these words changed to caring, selfless, challenging, diffident, honourable, emotional, determined, and family. And I think that was testament today of how many people are here that Trev did have that sort of ability to infiltrate people's lives. Trev infiltrated my life and the life of my family. To me, he was a mentor, a mate, a pillar and a confidant. My family remembering grumbling about people being in front of the scoreboard. Bowen Zane, remember the man that was always here at footy saying g'day. I was lucky enough to spend the last few days with him during his short battle, which he faced with elk, courage and tenacity, similar to the words that described him earlier. He would be shaking his head at me now, telling me to move on from this soppy crap. Okay, you silly old prick, I'll get on with it. He will be ever... Today we will hear from family, friends, some musos, and Trev's Breakers family before we send him off in style with the Breakers song and a casting ceremony for him to rest. I've got an apology from Paul and Anne Harris, who couldn't make it today. Paul's got an illness. but he said he insisted, sorry, I wrote this down so I didn't get it wrong. He insisted that I mention Trev's love of the Brisbane Lions and their premiership. Okay, enough of that. As Trev would say, for all that knew him, okay, hooroo for now. I'll be back later. So I've got some little ceremony sort of things that we're starting with. So first we've got up is to find out a bit more about Trev the man, his brother Ray Windmill. So you want to come down, Ray?
Okay, I've just been introduced, and my name is Ray, and I'm here today to pay tribute to my younger brother, Trevor. He was the youngest of 4 boys in our family, born 7 years after me in July 1954. So with 3 older brothers, we should have been able to set him a good example, but I don't think we always did that. My earliest recollection of Trevor was as a baby being fed by my mother in the kitchen of our home in Windaree Parade, Ballarat. Mum was upset and crying, and she wouldn't tell me what was wrong. Maybe it was because Dad was renovating the back of the house and half the back wall of the kitchen was missing, so she might have been upset by that, or it might be because she thought 3 boys were enough and she wanted a girl that time, but she got Trevor instead. She tried twice more after Trevor, and Trevor had 2 younger sisters, Heather and Anne. They can't be here today, unfortunately. Because of the age difference between Trevor and us older boys, he didn't really hang about with us very much, except when we were at home. And that was probably a good thing, because then he didn't get into all the mischief and strife that us older boys did. The Windmill boys were notorious in Ballarat. He was a good kid, but that doesn't mean to say we didn't see him as a bit of a nuisance sometimes. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, used to come round at the weekend or come round on Sundays, and we'd go for a drive, and if we didn't get out of the house quick enough, Mum would say, "Take Trevor with you, take Trevor with you." Okay, so Trevor would come with us, and Gerda had a little yellow Mini at that stage, and you know how small they are. Trevor would be sitting in the back seat, and every so often his head would come forward. "Where are we going now? What's happening now? What's up?" He was always asking questions. But I suppose that was part of Mum's intention, to make sure we behaved ourselves, and he was a pretty good chaperone that way. Trevor had lots of mates from his school days, and I'm told that in his teenage, I didn't witness this, but in his teenage years he had a band called the Coffs, spelt with a capital K. Rolly might be able to tell you more about that. But in Ballarat they had the Battle of the Sounds, or the Battle of the Bands, I'm not sure exactly which one's right. And Trevor sang Buddy Holly's song, "Rave On," but they didn't win, unfortunately. Are you with me? One of my sisters, Heather, tells me that Trevor was great to her in his teenage years when he stuck up for her, so nobody would bully her at school or elsewhere, with Trevor looking out for her. So he was pretty good like that. After I finished my education at the School of Mines, I moved to Melbourne for work, and I didn't see so much of Trevor anymore. I got married and started a family, and then we moved to Newcastle in the early 70s, staying there until 1984. The relevance of that will become obvious in a minute. In the meantime, Mum and Dad moved from Ballarat to Coffs Harbour. Yay! And Trevor went to stay with a relative in Windsor while he got a job working in the accounts department at the Savoy Plaza Hotel, and he was doing pretty well. But I don't think he liked the work there, and shortly afterwards he came up to Newcastle and stayed with us for a while. And he was working at Kmart and then at the zinc and lead smelter at Cockle Creek in Newcastle. But he hated that job, and I don't blame him, because it was such a dirty, smelly environment and wasn't good for your health. So Trevor met Lynn when he was 17 and Lynn was 16 at a music venue. What was it called, Lynn? The Cellar in Ballarat. And it was, downstairs, like a dungeon. Lynn must have been pretty keen on Trevor as she came up to join him in Newcastle, drove a little VW Beetle all the way from Victoria up to here to be with him, and they rented a house in Cooks Hill, which is not far from Newcastle Central Business District, walking distance. I think they only stayed about 18 months after that before moving on, and they moved up here and settled in Nana Glen, a cute little A-framed house in Nana Glen, which they stayed for a number of years. And Jade, get them in the right order, Jade and Lee joined the family, and the cute little A-framed house got to be a bit too small, I think, and Trevor had this dream to build a Federation style house, and they bought a steeply sloping block out at, it's now called Emerald Beach, isn't it? And Lake Russell Drive. And if you've ever been there, it's a lovely house. But during the building of it, they lived on site in a caravan, and they convinced my father to come down from Brisbane. I think it would have been Trevor's convincing, wouldn't it? Convinced my father to come down. Dad used to be a builder, but he was retired, to help him build the house. And they convinced my older brother, Jeff, he's not very well, so he couldn't be here today, convinced him to come up from Euston on the Murray to do all the electrical work because he's an electrician. And I must say, it's a credit to them, the house that they built. It's a lovely house, really did a great job on it. One story about while they were building the house, apparently Jeff snored so loudly that they kicked him out and said, "You go sleep in the house, Jeff." But even with him sleeping in the house, they could still hear him in the caravan. So my compliments to Trevor, Dad and Jeff building that great looking quality house, and it was to Trevor's design. Has beautiful views across the valley to the hills, and not far from the beach. Great location. I would have liked to have lived there myself. We used to visit Trevor and Lynn as often as we could from Newcastle, and we developed a good relationship with Trevor and his family. And we even visited Trevor and Lee, and I think Mel was over there too, in Western Australia, in Perth, when they were, Lee was renovating or building a house over there. So we got to see quite a bit of them. We used to visit on our way up to Queensland every year for the past many years, and stay on the property or stay down here at Mooney Beach. And the story behind that is, one year we pulled our caravan up on the drive next door to Trevor's place, across the property, and found a flat spot next to the water tanks and stayed there, had a lovely several days there with them. And then it started raining, and it rained all night. We got up in the morning and we were in a pond that surrounded us. And we had a quick consultation and said, I think we'd better get out of here. So we hooked up the car to the van and pulled off, and we had to go back across the property. And you should have seen those ruts that we left behind. I think they were about a foot deep. Trevor was very gracious about it. It's all right, we'll sort it out, we'll fix it up, he said. So thank you for that, Trevor. Ever since then, we've always stayed at the caravan park at Mooney Beach, which is a lovely spot. Just going to say something about dogs. Trevor seemed to always have a dog. Pardon me. He loved that dog, or those dogs, because there was more than one. And he was always throwing the ball to the dogs, and it's quite fun to stand up on the veranda and throw the ball to the dog, and off it go at 100 miles an hour to catch that ball. He was always exercising the dog that way. Don't think he ever took the dog for a walk, did he, Lynn? No. We didn't have much to do with Trevor's involvement with the footy club, but I knew he was pretty heavily involved. And one time when we were up here, he invited me to come with him to sell some raffle tickets at the pub. Off we went, and we got ourselves set up, and we were in the back room there, and these girls came in, and the next thing they were topless. And we were out there trying to sell raffle tickets in competition to these girls walking around topless. I don't even know what they were doing. It was just... I was a bit gobsmacked, so yeah. Never forget that episode. There was no contest. The girls won, not us. I'm going to say a little bit about my mum, because she was always ready to chat on the phone and to talk about her life on the Gold Coast and about her grandchildren, etc., and what was going on. But she died in 2003, and it really felt like the glue that held our family together had gone. And Trevor was the one that stepped into that gap. He was the one that was always ringing around our family, finding out what was going on, talking to us, etc. He became pretty much the focus of the family and held us together. And that was especially true a few years ago when he organised a Windmill family reunion down in Geelong. And that was a great success. We had a huge number of people turn up. We saw some of the places where our ancestors lived and worked, and a lot of our extended family still live there, so it was all due to Trevor's enthusiasm and organisation. I'm told that he also organised a reunion in Nana Glen last month, it's last month now, January, but unfortunately he wasn't with us long enough to attend himself. I'm proud to call Trevor my brother, proud of the way he conducted himself, proud of his devotion and loyalty to his wide circle of friends and to his footy club, proud of how he lived and brought up his family. Yes, he was grumpy sometimes, but he left us far too soon and we'll miss him. I'll miss his chats on the phone. He often called to see how we were, and I'm going to miss his phone calls where his opening line was usually, "How you going now?" And his farewell was usually, "Hooroo, hooroo." So I'm really glad I had Trevor as a brother. I'll cherish his memory for the many enjoyable times we spent with him and his family. So for now, Trevor, hooroo, hooroo.
I'd like to invite Eric Rose up to say a few words now. Trevor Windmill. I've known Trevor and the family for about 40 years. Basically, I'm from Sydney, painter and decorator from Sydney, and there was a Taubman's rep job available on the north coast, so I decided that it was a good option to get rid of getting on a ladder and come up here. I ended up moving to Nana Glen, and Trevor's family was there, Jade and Lee. In fact, I have two sons. My sons are pretty much the same age, actually. Jade and my eldest son, Damien, they went to school together, first day in kindergarten, and have been mates pretty much ever since. Trevor had a few different loves, not so much the type of what most people would think, but we're talking about football and things like that. And it's clear to me by looking at the people that are here and all the colours that have been worn. I always knew that Trevor's major love at the moment, apart from Lynn and the kids, was his footy. And although I know a lot about Trevor for nearly 40 years, I've never really got to come down to the footy. But yeah, I can see why. And the president was saying about all the things that Trevor was, and grumpy and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I think he did that just so he could stir people up. My nickname for Trevor wasn't so much Trevor, I used to call him Shags. I don't know why he got that nickname. It's probably just a nickname that I made up. But, you know, I think I was up here for about 4 years, and then we moved back to Sydney. And we've been close friends pretty much ever since. And like most people's lives, when we get to our age, around 70ish, you know, we've had our ups and downs, and I've been no exception. I've been married a couple of times, and I had a major business collapse in Sydney many years ago. Trevor was always there, and that's, you know, listening to some of the other people talk about, in particular the president using the words, he was always there. He had my back, and we could talk, and you know, it's not the sort of thing that you know, it's easy to get. There was no judgment with Trevor, and you know, I'm not saying that we didn't have our issues, Trevor and I, and I think the boys will say it. You know, we often bickered like an old married couple. A couple of years ago, I moved out of Sydney and moved up to Port Macquarie, where I now reside. And one of the things that I was happy about was to come up here and spend more time with Trevor. And I've been able to do that. And for most of you who know him, you know that he's always doing building works and things of that nature. So it was clear, you know, we'd said, well, look, I'd bought this old property up there, and I said, well, look, come on, Shags, why don't you give us a hand and we'll fix it up? And pretty much that's what's been doing. I was fortunate enough to see Trevor before he passed away. I saw him in hospital, and I come and grabbed his hand, and I just held his hand. And he said to me, he said, Rosie, he said, you're never short of a word. He said, I've never heard you, you know, lost for words. And never to be outdone by Trevor. I then looked at him square on the eye and I said, you'd do anything to get out of helping me finish building my home, wouldn't you? That was the last band that we had. And I'm sure for many of you who know him deeply, like I have,
you would have had plenty of the same. Music was his other love, and that's one thing that I used to share as well. He had a great sense of knowledge of young bands, young Australian bands, and we were always talking about that and playing the music. And when we were doing our building stuff, we'd put it on, and he'd say, "Who's this? Who's this singing this?" And I'd try and get it and go, no. And then I'd say it, thinking I'd be smart. He said, "Oh no, they did a cover." It wasn't that. It wasn't those people. When we were a little earlier, we used to do a fair bit of fishing and stuff like that, and that hasn't happened so much in recent times, but we used to enjoy that. And I know when I think back with Trevor, like for those of you who know him and known him for the last 10, 15, 20 years, you know him how he is, but knowing him early, he used to do riding motorbikes with the boys. In fact, I've only ever been on a motorbike once in my life, and that was when I was up in Nana Glen, and Trevor and myself and I think Jade and Lee and my boys were all up in the hills riding a motorbike, and it was fantastic. I know he enjoyed that with Lee and Jade. I know he enjoyed surfing with the boys. That was always a big part of what he enjoyed with the growing up of the boys. And of course music, and I know that Jade loves his music. I'm not so sure about Lethal, but I know that Jade does as well. And I'm sure that will continue on in Trevor's memory. So yeah, that's Shags will always remember in my heart, as I'm sure he will in all you. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Eric. Time to hear a bit of music, I think. Now change the mood a bit. So can I get Roland Weatherall to come down and share a few stories about Trevor and his music journey?
Right, now I've known Trevor since he was about that high, so if you can imagine what he was like. Never scared of anybody. We were both at primary school together, and we weren't always the best of friends. We knew each other. I think one of my first things I remember about Trevor with his bravado, we were at Sebastian swimming pool and he walked in and flicked me with wet bather, so I punched him in the stomach. He said, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "I didn't start it." But we lost contact, and then we both went to East High together. So I used to meet Trevor in the morning. We'd ride our bikes to school. Trevor never stopped singing, and we'd be there. There was a song one morning, I've said to a lot of people, I nearly pushed him off his bike. We met him for about 30 minutes. All I got was, "Oh, sweet pea, won't you dance with me?" And I go, "Shut up." But Trevor and myself, I think, both knew at primary school that we were going to be musicians. So when we were at East High, Trevor was, besides wanting to sing, was also a bit of an actor. He would be in anything, not scared of anybody. So we got through our East High days. Trevor moved into a band, and probably at that time, when he was maybe 17, probably would have been one of the best bands in Ballarat. Trevor's audition for the band, as he tells me, he went along to watch this band with a mate who was auditioning. And when it come time for his mate to sing, he said his mate just run out the door. He was that scared. And one of the guitarists looked at Trevor and said, "Could you sing?" He said, and I got up and they gave me the job. So he ended up in a great band. A couple of years after that, I ended up playing with some of those musicians, and they were brilliant players. So he was just, I don't know, he was cheeky. He just had this, and he was, and so for people who didn't know Trevor when he was young, he was a very handsome man, very much like myself. That's why we got on so well. But we sort of lost a bit of contact, and with Ray saying about the Battle of the Sounds, it was actually the Hoadleys National Battle of the Sounds, which was the biggest competition in Australia, not just Ballarat. So what they used to do, all the bands, they'd have regional competitions, and the band that won that would then end up going to Melbourne, and if you won that, you got a recording contract. Trevor's band didn't win, but 2 years later mine did. So that was always good to show him that medal as well. But we tended to again lose contact with each other, and then Trevor just rang me one day and he said, I was up in Perth and I bumped into such and such, and I said, do you know whether Rolly's still alive? And I was, thank God. But anyway, so he rang me up and we chatted, and then of course I talked him into using a bit of technology. He gave me a FaceTime call, and at that time I realised the person I was talking to was virtually myself. We had so much in common. So after that, Trevor said, I think we should have a reunion. So it's very rare for him to do that sort of stuff. But anyway, he came down, we organised a reunion. Trevor came, well, he said, when he was coming down, he said, do you know anywhere I could stay? I said, well, you should stay with us. So he did, and then he came back, and then he came back again. And then he rang me up and he said, now, you're always saying you want to put an ensuite in the front of your house. He said, what say I take 3 weeks off in January when it's too hot and I come down? So he came down and we did the renovations, and at that time my wife's mother was fairly crook, so she had to go, and she left Trevor and myself by ourselves. And we had an absolute ball. We talked about the olden days, what we did at school, so much we hopped in the car, went down and bought a bottle of Passiona and a tub of ice cream, and we made spiders, and we sat there like we were little kids. We had an absolute ball. But his love of music was always there, and he used to, like, we'd listen to everything when he was there, but he used to say to me, I don't know why I didn't learn an instrument. So he rang up one day and he said, I want to learn an instrument. I said, what are you going to learn? He said, bass. And I'm thinking, well, you're a singer, why don't you learn guitar? But he wanted to learn bass. So I started giving Trevor bass lessons every Wednesday night. So for probably an hour to an hour and a half, we'd go the same way. How's your practice been? Well, look, some days it's good, some days it's not that good, but I'm getting there. I go, what have you been doing? Oh, I've been trying this, but I wouldn't mind learning this. So we'd start doing it over the internet. He'd write it down. I said to a lot of people, if anyone finds that book, they'll think he was writing a special code for a science project, because I said no one's going to know what it is. But we do that, we talk then for probably 35, 40 minutes. Then I go, I've got to go now, Trev. Oh, before you go, how'd that go again? And we'd start, and then it would always finish with, now if you get a chance tomorrow, Rolly, could you make a video of that and send it to me? So he's got more videos of me than I've ever had, but he was such a great friend, and as you all know, a perfectionist. If he was going to do anything for you, there were no corners cut. It was, we've got to do it this way, Rolly, do it right, do it once, that's what we'll do. But no, so he ended up a great mate. So we have actually got, this is Trevor's bass amp, and over there I've got Trevor's bass. So I'm actually going to play a bass solo. I know most people that go to things like this will normally see a guitarist or a piano player get up there and play, because most people don't realise that bass is actually an instrument, and that we do it. And Trevor knew that, and I've always got to look in my dictionary for this, so just give me a sec. Oh no, I'll shut it down. I'll reboot it. Oh no, but it was, if you ever look up bass player, it'll tell you how important people are anyway. Now I'm just going to go plug the bass in, and then I will talk loudly as I get things set up, so it won't be a second. We're looking at, there was a great bass player that both Trevor and myself thought was one of the greatest, and he's like the Jimi Hendrix of bass players. When he was younger, he used, Jacko Pastorius used to, much like Hendrix, a lot of distortion, throw his bass around, jump off amplifiers, do somersaults, but he was just a brilliant player as well. So he wrote, there are two pieces of music that he put together. One was called Portrait of Tracy, and I've actually, I've changed it slightly to be now called Tribute to Trevor. The other part that I will go into is a piece of music that Jacko Pastorius wrote called Continuum. And from my understanding, continuum means two people travelling down the same line very closely, but a little bit different. And I think that's what Trevor and I were. So this piece here is, if I get it right, is a melodic piece, and if I get it wrong, you won't know. And if you hear any sort of notes that sound a bit strange, or fret bars, or shouldn't be there, they are actually meant to be in it. And if you don't hear them, they weren't. I am going to sit down. I've actually been playing since I was 15. I'm 28. And I've never got nervous before, but today I am, because I am using Trevor's bass and his amp. So, can you hear that? Good. technology is amazing. Wrong way. They all fall over. Can't see where you're up there. Anyone would think we've done this before. No, look, it's anyway. That's my tribute to Trevor, and I will miss him a lot. I say every Wednesday night. As I said to Trevor when I was talking to him in hospital when he FaceTimed me, we had just did a big renovation on our bathroom, put a bath in. Every Wednesday night, I'd give Trevor a lesson. My wife would have a bath. I said to him, "You need to get home, Trev. She hasn't had a bath for 2 weeks." And I don't know how much longer this will last, but anyway. But look, he was, I say, a great friend to everybody, and I'm sure everyone up there knows that. So thank you.
And I'll invite Matt Daggett now to come and say a few words about Trevor and his relationship to the football club.
Thanks, Jay. First of all, I'd just like to say it's a great honour to speak on behalf of the Coffs Harbour Breakers Football Club, and also thanks to Mark Kelly from North Coffs for providing some insight into Trevor's journey prior to the commencement of the Breakers in 2014. Trev's a life member of both North Coffs and Coffs Breakers football clubs. Shows a huge testament to the commitment he provided to the AFL community for the past 27 years. Trevor Windmill commenced as a volunteer in the AFL North Coast competition in 1998 with the North Coffs Kangaroos. Trevor was an involved parent, committed family man, and father of Lee and Jade, who had registered to play in the under-17s competition. Trevor helped the club in many ways right from the outset, along with wife Lynn, or as Trev called her, she who must be obeyed. On game day, Trev would be seen waving the flags behind the goals or manning the scoreboard, and Lynn would often take up the role of first aider, or in later years helping in the canteen. In 1999, Trevor stepped up into the Vice President's role, which is a role he held for the next 4 years before he stepped up to the President's role at North Coffs. He was President for 2 years before stepping back into the Vice President's role in 2005. Trevor was front and centre in promotion of the club, selling the weekly meat raffle tickets and assisting at many other fundraisers. Trevor was awarded North Coffs Life Membership number 12 in 2007 in recognition of all his efforts. In late 2014, with the merger of the North Coffs and Coffs Swans to form the Coffs Harbour Breakers, Trevor was a member of the initial forming committee and was Vice President of the club from 2014 onwards. Always a man of integrity, his attention to detail was second to none. At the Breakers, Trev was a regular on the timekeeping table and would volunteer his time all day, every Saturday, 4 games a day. He would collect all the paperwork, keep all the scores, had all his systems and folders in check. Dotting his I's, crossing his T's, 4 folders, red for under 18s, yellow for the women, green for resis, blue for senior men. One thing I knew though, don't touch Trev's folders. He would let you know in uncertain terms that was a no-go. Trev loved the canteen and was a regularly quality control sampler. He provided great insight into the items that we had to have at the canteen. He loved a chicken schnitzel burger, didn't mind a pie, but absolutely loved the steamed dim sims. He would also give appraisal of the away canteens on game day. If you thought Matt Preston was tough on MasterChef, you've never seen Trevor Windmill. As I alluded to earlier, Trevor was a regular on the scoreboard at North Coffs and felt best to pass on his wisdom to all the Breakers players as to how it should all be done. Don't get the scores wrong, Trev would let you know. And as I'm sure a lot of you already know, do not sit in front of the scoreboard. Whilst it might sound with all of this, Trev sounds like a cranky old fella, the truth to it all is that he had a heart of gold. He was always supporting the club members by providing work or finding jobs for players of both clubs. He would often be knocking up jobs and things around the club. If you needed something done, Trev was your man. Even last year on a cold and wet day at the footy at Nambucca, I was commenting to Trev that my daughter had been allocated a uni placement in Sydney and we were struggling to find accommodation for her. Straight away, Trev was on the phone, ringing anyone he knew down there, trying to help us out. A better clubman was hard to find. Another trait of Trev's was he had a very dry sense of humour. One of the last memories I have with Trev was at AFL Grand Final Day 2024 at the Morgans. Trev, as we heard earlier, was a Brisbane Lions supporter, and my wife Carmel's a boisterous Sydney Swan supporter. So we're there watching the game at the Morgans. Trev reserved his spot up in the back corner, didn't want to say much. Carmel front and centre up the front in the red and white. Well, as we know how the game went. It was over a quarter time, and Trev thought he'd make his way up to Carmel and just gave her a little nudge and said, "Would you like a tissue, Carmel?" One very important role Trev conducted every year, people might not know this, Trev ran the best and fairest, did the administering of all that every year. He'd hand out all the vote cards to those he thought were the right people to vote on the game, he'd scrutineer them. He'd also collect the cards back, seal the envelopes, and at the end of the season he gave them to me to tabulate all the results for the presentation night. There was one stipulation though, that I gave him a debrief of the results before presentation night, so he had a heads up on who it was. He took great pride in that, and I'm very proud today to announce that out of respect for Trev's effort, the Coffs Harbour Breakers Senior Men's Best Fairest Award will be named the Trevor Windmill Medal. And just finally, upon many a phone call and a discussion at the end of the day with Trev, he'd always sign off by saying hooroo as he finished up or finished the call. So as a final sign off, hooroo Trev, rest in peace mate.
We just thought we'd extend the welcome for anyone that's here today that would like to share a short story of Trev, or anything that they'd like to say. Feel free to come forward.
I just wanted to get up here on behalf of the playing group for the last couple of years, both men and women of the Breakers, and say thanks to Trev one last time. We probably will never be able to say thank you enough to what he's done for our playing group. Certainly won't be the same down here on a Saturday. Just a real quick short story, and I know Jay was pretty keen on this and we'll never be able to do it, but I thought something funny. He was always bickering with different people, but a few years ago, he would always bicker with Donnie, and we were going to make a reality TV show and make millions for the footy club. It was going to be the Trevor and Donnie show, and we always thought that was funny, and then it moved on to his battle with some locals down here that he used to love to hose off and get rid of them before all the kids had turned up, and he was always thinking of the footy first, and he wasn't a BS-er, Trev, he'd just tell you how it was. He was a great bloke, and I'll miss hearing how it was. So, hooroo Trev, and thank you one last time from all the players and the coaches.
I'm sure the council won't mind if anyone puts a plaque on the fire hose to call it the Trevor fire hose. I think he used it more than anyone. Never for a fire though. Just wait a couple more moments if anyone else would like to. Yep.
Better got the view from the umpires. Yeah, Trevor. Georgie, my old mate up there. Some of you might not know, Georgie had to give Trevor a yellow card as a goal umpire one a few years back. Trev never spoke to him for 3 years. So, now look, on behalf of the umpires, I'm a life member of the league, Jim and Jill Woodlock up there. We've worked with Trev from administration and umpiring, and I thought, how would you sum him up? A great football bloke, great football person. I thought, what's a great football person? It's just a great person that's involved in footy, and that was Trev.
No one else wants to come up? No, I'll just, while I get some stuff ready, I'll just invite Lynn to come up. Let's say a few words.
I sort of hadn't planned to say any words, but I'll see what happens. And I'd just like to thank Jane, Amanda, and the team, the club, and also the wonderful day they put on. And to all Trevor's friends and to the relatives that have come up today to celebrate with us. Trevor was just so passionate about the club, North Coffs, and the Breakers. He just loved his footy at home. Couldn't say anything when the football was on. So I went walking front, told me to get going. So I just sort of went to the other room when the football was on. He was just so passionate. There's quite a few funny things over the years that happened, and about the, when he was in the goals and was sent off. And there was another day that was, I think it was Fortel, and next minute someone came and just said like that inside of Jade's face. Next minute, Trevor went out there and everyone was out there. So it was quite a lot of funny things happening over the years. But just before he passed, we actually had to come to the shed for something, and then next minute Trevor comes and looks around, and he's sleeping on the stairs and that. And I said to Trevor, "Keep your mouth shut." And I'd just like to thank everyone for coming today. It's very quite overwhelming, and he just loved everyone and the clubs. And thank you very much, and thank you so much to Jay and all
So Lynn and the family would like to invite everyone now to come down to the goal square, and we'll make a big guard of honour and that sort of thing, and we might do a little casting of Trev. So if everyone wants to start making a move towards the goal square, less than 4 sticks for anyone to stop
John, what? Did you drive here or did you come from
It's gone down until September. I've got to get a new agent. Yeah.
with your knees, all right?
Yeah.
Getting there?
Yeah, so. Isn't that lovely?
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, that you're.
Everyone hear me? Is this just a poem or a final flight? Don't grieve for me, but now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took his hand when I heard his call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to work, to play. Task left undone must stay that way. I found that peace at the end of the day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah yes, these things too I will miss. Don't be burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I savoured much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't link it now with undue grief. Lift up your heart and share with me my birth, my grief.
What was it? Yeah, it's in the program.
Uplifting rush of quiet birds in the circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not think of me as gone. I am with you still in each new dawn.
USB mode.
So join in the chorus and sing it one and all. Join in the chorus, Coffs breakers on the ball. Good old Coffs breakers are champions who'll agree. Coffs breakers is the team that plays to win for you and me. Champions who'll agree, 'cause breakers
do, we're going to go to the side of the old scoreboard, and we're going to put Trev in front of the scoreboard so no one will ever stand in front of it again. And then we'd like everyone to join us back at the club rooms for some refreshments and just to share some stories about Trev. So thanks everyone.
I finish filming now.
Okay.
Or do you want me to keep going around or just look at this, do some refreshments? Or?